In the early 1920s, hundreds of young women across America went to work in factories with a job that seemed almost magical. They painted watch dials with a substance that glowed in the dark, a luminous paint containing radium that made timepieces readable at night. The work was well paid, the environment was cheerful, and the girls were told the radium was completely safe. Some even painted their nails and teeth with the glowing substance for fun, becoming known as ghost girls when they went out dancing, their bodies emanating an ethereal glow in the dark. Within a few years, these same women would be fighting for their lives, their jaws crumbling, their bones breaking spontaneously, their bodies literally disintegrating from the inside out. Their employers knew the danger all along. The story begins in 1898 when Marie and Pierre Curie discovered radium, a radioactive element that glowed with an otherworldly blue-green light. The public was immediately fascinated. Radium was hailed as a miracle substance. It was added to toothpaste, cosmetics, and even drinking water. Radium spas opened across Europe and America. The element that would later be understood as deadly was marketed as a health tonic. In 1917, as America entered World War I, the United States Radium Corporation opened a factory in Orange, New Jersey. They had developed a paint called Undark that combined radium with zinc sulfide to create a luminous coating perfect for watch dials, instrument panels, and military equipment. The company needed workers to apply this paint to tiny watch faces, work that required a steady hand and fine attention to detail. They recruited young women, some as young as 14, offering wages that were excellent for female workers at the time. The job seemed glamorous. The studios were clean and bright, unlike the dirty, dangerous factories where many working-class women toiled. The radium dust covered everything, making the whole workspace sparkle. The women's hair, faces, and clothes would glow when they left work. They called themselves the Shining Girls. The technique they were taught was called lip pointing. To achieve the fine point needed to paint the tiny numbers on watch faces, the women were instructed to shape their brushes with their lips or tongues. Dip, lip, paint. Dip, lip, paint. Hundreds of times each day. Each time, they swallowed a tiny amount of radium. When workers asked about safety, managers assured them the radium was harmless. In fact, they said it was beneficial to their health. The managers pointed to the expensive radium tonic drinks sold in pharmacies. If rich people paid good money to drink radium water, surely a tiny amount of radium paint couldn't hurt. But while the young women shaped brushes with their mouths, the chemists and scientists working with larger quantities of radium in the same building wore lead aprons and handled the substance with ivory-tipped tongs. The company's own literature, distributed to the medical community but not to the workers, warned of radium's dangers. The executives knew, the chemists knew, the dial painters were deliberately kept in the dark. The first sign of trouble came in 1922. Molly Maggia, a particularly vivacious dial painter who had worked at the factory for 5 years, began complaining of tooth pain. Her dentist pulled the tooth, but the socket wouldn't heal. More teeth loosened and fell out. The pain spread through her jaw. When her dentist touched her jawbone, it crumbled beneath his fingers like ash. By 1923, Molly's entire lower jaw had been removed. Tumors sprouted from her throat. On September 12, 1922, Molly Maggia died at age 24. Her death certificate listed syphilis as the cause, a common tactic to discredit and shame women who tried to speak out about workplace injuries. Molly wasn't alone. Hazel Vincent's jaw began to decay. Irene Rudolph's jaw swelled with tumors. Grace Fryer's spine was collapsing, and mysterious lesions appeared on her body. Quinta McDonald's hips spontaneously fractured. The radium they had ingested was bombarding their bones with radiation. causing them to literally rot from the inside. Radium has a particular cruelty in how it kills. The body mistakes it for calcium and deposits it in bones and teeth. Once there, it bombards the surrounding tissue with radiation for years. The women's bodies were being destroyed at the cellular level. Their bones developed thousands of tiny holes, like Swiss cheese. They glowed in the dark. When examined in a dark room, their bodies emanated the same ghostly light as the watch dials they had painted. By 1924, dozens of dial painters were ill or dead. The company insisted the women were suffering from syphilis, anemia, or phosphorus poisoning, anything but radium exposure. They hired company doctors to examine the women and declare them healthy. When that failed, they claimed the women's problems were due to poor hygiene or pre-existing conditions. Grace Fryer decided to fight back. She wanted to sue U.S. Radium, but no lawyer would take her case. It took 2 years to find an attorney willing to challenge a powerful corporation. By then, Grace could barely walk. Her spine was collapsing, and her jaw was disintegrating. Time was running out. In 1927, Grace and 4 other dying women, Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, Quinta MacDonald, and Albina Larisse, filed suit against U.S. Radium. The press called them the Radium Girls. The case became a sensation. The newspapers were filled with photographs of formerly vibrant young women now confined to wheelchairs, their bodies wasting away. U.S. Radium hired teams of lawyers to delay the trial. They knew time was on their side. The women were dying. The company demanded the women be examined by company doctors. It challenged their character, suggesting they were loose women whose illnesses were due to syphilis. The lawyers filed motion after motion, delay after delay. But the Radium Girls had an unexpected ally, the press. Journalists were horrified by the women's condition and the company's callousness. Public opinion turned sharply against U.S. Radium. The story went national, then international. The company's stock price plummeted. As the trial date approached, the women's health deteriorated rapidly. Catherine Schaub couldn't leave her bed. Quinta MacDonald's weight had dropped to 70 pounds. They were running out of time. In a dramatic turn, the judge appointed a mediator and strongly suggested the company settle. In June 1928, each woman received $10,000, equivalent to about $170,000 today, plus a $600 annual pension and all medical expenses. It seemed like a victory, but it was bittersweet. The women were too sick to enjoy their settlement. All 5 would be dead within a decade. But their sacrifice wasn't in vain. The Radium Girls case led to a revolution in workplace safety. It established the right of workers to sue employers for occupational diseases. It led to the creation of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Most importantly, it established the principle that companies have a duty to protect their workers from known hazards. The case also transformed our understanding of radiation. The Radium Girls were among the first people whose bodies were studied to understand the effects of internal radiation exposure. Their suffering provided crucial data that helped establish safety standards for nuclear workers and led to regulations that protect millions of workers today. U.S. Radium never admitted wrongdoing. The company continued operating until 1970. The factory site in Orange, New Jersey, remained contaminated with radium for decades. It wasn't fully cleaned up until the 1990s, at a cost of over $100 million. The last of the dial painters died in the 1990s, but their legacy lives on. Every workplace safety regulation, every warning label, every protective equipment requirement exists because workers like the Radium Girls fought for their rights. They literally glowed in the dark as they died, becoming beacons that illuminated the path to worker protection. In 2017, nearly a century after the first dial painter picked up her brush, the story of the Radium Girls continues to resonate. Their graves still register radiation levels significantly above normal. Even in death, they glow, a permanent reminder of the price of progress and the cost of corporate greed. The Radium Girls wanted to be remembered. Grace Fryer, speaking to a reporter shortly before her death, said, "It is not for myself I care. I am thinking more of the hundreds of girls to whom this may serve as an example." Their example did more than serve. It transformed American labor law and saved countless lives. The ghost girls who once danced with glowing bodies in Newark dance halls became the guardian angels of American workers. Their sacrifice ensuring that no employer could ever again poison workers with impunity.